This is Scott.
This is Rebecca.
Welcome to Hardy Party at 5.5.
It's kind of like a variety show.
That's right, a smile for your ears.
So keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and let's see where this roller coaster takes us.
Hey Scott.
Hey Rebecca.
Are you so excited?
I am.
We have another one of your top level man crush on the podcast today.
We do.
And apparently all your top level man crush are named Eric.
I guess they are.
Because today on the podcast we have Eric Nadel. He is the voice of the Texas Rangers since 1979.
He has been voted the Texas Sportcaster of the Year 7 times.
7 times.
That's more Super Bowls than Tom Brady has.
That is impressive.
And in 2014, he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Wow.
We have a Hall of Famer on the show today.
We do. And you don't have to be a baseball fan to enjoy this podcast, because I asked him about his wife, and he loves music, and he wrote a book of poetry.
He's a Renaissance man.
He is a Renaissance man. So please welcome to Hardy Party 5.5, Eric Nadel.
Number 5,000 is history for Nolan Ryan.
Napoli plays behind fielder, a step or two at first base. Here's the 1-1 offering. A swing and a drive to left center field. That is in the gap. It ties the game. Alberto's home. Here's fielder around third base. Prince is being waved around. He's steaming for the plate. Here's the throw. A head first dive. He scores! The Rangers win it 4-3, and Josh Hamilton is mobbed between first and second.
Perry to the set. Now to the plate. Cruz is swinging a high fly down the left field line. It is hooking deep in the corner. Way back. That ball is history. A walk-off grand slam for Nelson Cruz. The ballpark is exploding. Cruz fires his helmet, arrives at home plate. The Rangers are there waiting. They have beaten the Tigers 7-3.
Comes the pitch. Breaking ball, strike 3 call! The Rangers are going to the World Series in the 50th year of the franchise. In their 39th year in Texas, under a full moon in Arlington, the Texas Rangers have won the American League pennant.
We have the opportunity to bring joy into people's lives, to touch people with the gift of this great game. And most important, of course, we have the chance every day to be a light in the world. Let's never forget to keep that part of the dream alive.
Well, welcome, Eric Nadel, voice of the Texas Rangers.
We're so happy to have him. Yeah.
Thanks so much. I love it. I love baseball. We love baseball and everything about it. So it's an honor to have you on.
Yeah.
I appreciate your asking me. You guys seem like you're a lot of fun. We'll find out.
Let's see where this goes. Yeah. So we know that you were born in Brooklyn and you're a big Dodger fan. So what was life like in New York being a Dodger fan in the 50s?
The thing about Brooklyn was, they had an unbelievable attachment to the team. And back then when I was growing up, baseball players made the same amount of money as the other people in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Gil Hodges, who was the Dodgers first baseman, lived around the corner from us. And so you really felt an attachment to the team. I was just 6 years old when my parents started taking me to games at Ebbets Field. And I got really attached. And at the end of that season, the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles. So I really didn't get to experience, that much of the strong feelings during a baseball season, just that one season, really.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers that year did not win the pennant. They had won it the year before and the year before that. 1957, the year that I started going, They didn't win the pennant. And then in September, it was announced they were moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And it was just an absolutely crushing blow to all of these people who had grown up with the Dodgers in Brooklyn, including my parents. My father really was never a baseball fan again.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And, once I started working in baseball, he kind of got back into it. But the Dodgers was so much a part of the fabric of Brooklyn that their leaving was just horrible. But, we lived in a middle-class neighborhood. We lived in what they call a two-family house there, which in the rest of the world they call a duplex.
Okay, yeah.
House. My grandparents, my mom's parents lived upstairs from us.
Wow.
And, I was close enough to my elementary school and my junior high school to walk to school. And sometimes I would walk to high school. It was about a mile. Sometimes I would ride my bike. If it was convenient for my dad, he would drive me. But it was, the kind of upbringing that you're glad you had, not the ideal place probably for a kid with all that concrete in New York.
Oh, yeah, true. Yeah.
But but I got to play Little League Baseball on they called it a grass field. It was really just dirt. On a, quote, grass field that was really dirt. But, we were kids playing in the street all the time. We were playing stickball and punch ball and going to the schoolyard and playing basketball. And that's pretty much what I lived for as a kid, was both playing games and then going to games, going to Madison Square Garden to see the Knicks and the Rangers and going to see the Giants and the Jets play football. I was totally into sports.
So when you're playing stickball, who was the player that you would try to stand like? Because I know every kid does that. I know I did. So who was the guy that you tried to hit like?
Well, I didn't really have a stance that I copied.
Yeah.
We had all kinds of favorite players. And as the Mets came in 1962 and became our favorite team, those were the guys who unfortunately we emulated because they were like the worst team in baseball.
There were some guys that were on that team in 62.
They had some of the old Dodgers. They actually had Gil Hodges, and he was the guy I would make believe I was. Don Zimmer was on that team. And later to manage the Rangers, Duke Snyder. Buddy Bell's dad, Gus Bell, was one of the stars of that team. Elio Chacon was the shortstop. They had a catcher named Choo Choo Coleman. And Roger Craig was the ace of the pitching staff. He lost 24 games.
He lost 24?
He lost 24.
Oh, my. That's the ace.
The Mets announcers were always reminding us, you have to be really good to lose 20 games or they wouldn't keep sending you out there.
That's right, yeah. You've got to break through at some point, right? Yeah.
Who did you stand like?
I was a big Yaz fan when I was really young, so I always, he held the bat really high and straight, so I always tried to hit like him.
That was the fun one to copy,
Yeah, it's hard to get around on that, yeah.
That's not who you stand like now.
No, I'm more like Mark Grace now.
You morphed into Mark Grace at some point,
yeah. For softball, I still do Mark Grace.
Slow pitch, that's where we are now, Eric.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So, in New York, I know there's a story that you have that you're riding in your car with your dad. It's a DeSoto, right?
Yeah, DeSoto.
Yeah. So, tell us what happened that totally changed what you were going to do in your life. So
my dad was a dentist, and every now and then on his lunch hour, he would pick me up and we would go to lunch together. And one day we were in the car and the Yankee game was on the radio. So we're listening to Mel Allen do this Yankee game.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, now how did this guy get off work? And I asked my dad, how did Mel Allen get off work today so he could go to the baseball game? And my dad said, no, that is his work. That's his job.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a second. So you're going to go back to the office in an hour and you're going to pull teeth and fill cavities. And this guy goes to Yankee Stadium and blah, 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 blah. And they pay him for that. He even gets to drink beer and eat hot dogs. They used to do that commercials back then. My dad said, yeah. I said, well, Dad, he's got a better job than you do. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Probably 7 or 8 years old at the time.
That's so great.
And unbelievably, here I am actually doing that more than 60 years later.
Definitely.
Yeah, just a little bit in the Hall of Fame and such. So
just a little.
I think it's worked out for you.
It worked out all right. And, my parents weren't very much in favor of this. At that time, there were only 16 major league teams.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
And so there were 2 announcers per team. There were 32 jobs, in the whole country doing this. Yeah. And, they said, your odds aren't very good. You should probably try to be a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But I never really lost the desire to do it. And they actually helped me along the way. They got me a tape recorder for my 14th birthday, and I would turn down the sound on the TV and make believe I was doing the games. When I was in high school, they paid for me to go to a program at Northwestern University in Chicago for kids interested in radio broadcasting. And that's really kind of how I got my start.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, we got to run the college radio station a couple of nights a week and took classes in how to operate a control board, and we got our FCC licenses. And that actually put me, in a position when I went to college above all of the other incoming freshmen who wanted to do radio but really had no background.
Yeah, that's so cool.
No, that's cool that they were supporting you in that when originally they were like, don't know if this is a real job.
Even in college, they were urging me, to take the LSAT. By then they realized I wasn't going to be a doctor or a dentist. I fainted at the sight of blood.
Yeah.
Law school seemed to be a good idea to them, and they kept really harping on that. Even when I was in the business doing minor league hockey, making hardly any money at all, they were suggesting that, I could probably live a lot better if I would go be a lawyer. But it just wasn't really of interest to me.
Yeah. So after college, you're a minor league hockey announcer. You started in Michigan, through Oklahoma City, then Dallas, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So how does a hockey announcer become a baseball player or a baseball announcer? Just how do you switch from one to the other like that? How did that come about?
With great difficulty, honestly. I had grown up with baseball, playing baseball, listening to baseball from the time I was a little kid. I had heard probably thousands of games. But after my second year broadcasting the Dallas Blackhawks, which was our minor league team before the Dallas Stars moved from Minnesota, I got a call from the Rangers asking me if I had ever done baseball. And, I lied and told them that I had, but I didn't have a
You can figure it out later, right? Yeah.
I didn't have a tape to prove it, so they let me audition. I did 4 games into a tape recorder late in the 1978 season. And they hired me to start the following year. So I had a whole off season to get ready. And so I asked my friends around the country to record the baseball announcers in their cities and send me a cassette. So I was listening to Vin Scully and, Ernie Harwell and Jack Buck and all of these great announcers around the country. And I had learned to do hockey in college by learning the phrases. You do play-by-play basically as a series of phrases.
Yeah.
There's ways of saying different things. I needed to learn the baseball phraseology. There's a ground ball to short. Well, you can say it any number of ways. You can say there's a slow roller to short. There's a high hopper to short. There's a one-hop smash to short.
Yeah.
Say on a fly ball to center, you can say Rivers is after it. Or you could say Rivers racing into the gap. Or Rivers coming on. Or Rivers, strolling to his left. Or coasting to his right. All of these kind of words need to be on the tip of your tongue to do play-by-play. And I spent that whole off season, practicing that. I actually bought a VCR, which at that time cost $1,000.
Yeah, I was saying that's probably 4 figures. Yeah.
$1,000 for the first version, of the video recorder, and I got some video cassettes of games, and turned down the sound, and did make believe broadcasts off those games.
Oh wow, that's cool.
But the biggest challenge for a baseball announcer isn't really the play-by-play. It's what are you going to do with the time between pitches?
Yeah.
Between batters. In a 3-hour baseball game. And of course, back then a game wasn't 3 hours; it was 2.5 hours. But now it's over 3 hours. The ball's in play for about 15 minutes.
Yeah. So you had a lot of time to fill.
Is just fill.
Yeah.
How are you going to fill that time? And a lot of it has to do with pacing and personality. And that was the hardest part of it, because hockey is super fast-paced.
Yeah.
Don't worry about filling the time. You don't worry about having any personality. In baseball, it's exactly the opposite. I was really lucky, though. My first partner was John Miller, who went on to
Yeah.
do Saturday Night Baseball for many years on ESPN, and now is the voice of the San Francisco Giants. And he really helped me make the transition just by emulating him and also asking him a million questions. And it helped a lot. He was only there 1 year before moving on to Boston, but that was really, that was baseball broadcasting 101 with John.
Yeah. We went to a Baltimore game, I guess in the 90s, and he was the announcer for the Orioles.
Yeah.
And we were leaving the game, and I spotted him across the parking lot. And I tracked him down, and I'm like, I had him sign my ticket. So he's probably like, who is this guy? But yeah, I love John Miller too, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about your first Ranger broadcast, 1979? In 79, I lived in Kansas, probably went to a Royals game occasionally. We lived in the country. So what were you doing in 1979? First Ranger broadcast.
First Ranger broadcast was at Tiger Stadium. And back then, I would do television color or analysis for 7 innings of the game with Frank Gleber as the play-by-play guy. And then for 2 innings of the game, normally like the 4th and the 5th or the 5th and the 6th, I would go over and do the play-by-play on the radio. And what I remember about that game more than anything is it was really cold. It was sunny, but very cold. And they had a fire in the stadium during spring training, and the regular broadcast booths were not usable. So we actually had to work outside. Instead of a booth that's semi-enclosed, we were completely out in the open.
Oh, no.
Above the upper deck where the football announcers used to work when they did Lions football games at Tiger Stadium.
Wow.
And I knew I was going to be on camera both at the beginning of the game, and I was going to be going down on the field after the game. And I wanted to look really cool, so I wore this leather sport jacket.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring an overcoat.
Oh, no.
And I figured, it's sunny, it's not going to be too cold. But it was really windy, and it got colder and colder as the day went on. And Fergie Jenkins pitched a complete game that day. The Rangers won 8-2. Fortunately, it was a pretty quick game. And I was getting ready to go down to the field, and I figured, I better go take a leak before I do that. And I tore my fly, the zipper on my pants, as I was zipping up, and I couldn't close it. And all I had was this sport jacket to wear.
Yeah.
So I went into the booth, and Frank Gleber was a large guy. And I tapped Frank on the shoulder. It was between innings. I tapped him on the shoulder, and I took out his headset. I said, Frank, can I borrow your overcoat? And he had this big white trench coat, like Hank Stram, the Kansas City Chiefs coach.
Oh, yeah. In the frozen tundra.
Yeah, kind of a Columbo overcoat. And I borrowed his Columbo trench coat. And that's what I wore down on the field, doing my first ever TV interview with Fergie Jenkins. It's me in this 5 sizes too big, this white trench coat on the field interviewing Fergie Jenkins.
Oh, that is awesome.
That's incredible.
Oh, gosh.
I mean,
just making it work.
I want to see that footage.
Yeah, we need to find that somewhere.
Find that footage.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, so top 3 moments as a Ranger announcer. What are your top 3? You can reminisce with Scott a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's
I
got
might have some of the same. So,
yeah.
Yes.
So what are your top 3?
Well, the first one is the Rangers winning the pennant for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And Neftali Feliz striking out A-Rod, the ballpark going crazy. I couldn't even talk for about a minute. I was so overcome. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
That's really number 1, 2, and 3. But the second one is probably the night the Rangers scored 30 runs in Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
To set an all-time Major League record. I was planning to take that game off. It was at the end of a road trip. The Rangers were out of contention, and it was a doubleheader. And I was planning to take the doubleheader off, fly home, so I would be well rested the next night when the team came home, and we would be broadcasting in 100 degrees, which would really sap your energy. And then I remember what Mark Holtz used to say, my longtime partner. He'd say, well, what if you take a game off and that's the night that Charlie Huff throws a perfect game?
Yeah, something happens that you should have been there
Something
for. Yeah.
really big happens. And I thought to myself, what the heck? Just do it.
Yeah.
And so I did the game, and the Rangers wound up scoring 30 runs. In order to do that, they got, I think, 7 RBIs from their number 9 batter, Ramon Vasquez, including the 3-run homer in the 9th inning. 30 runs. And Jared Saltalamacchia, who batted 8, drove in 6 runs. They got
he was the catcher, right? Saltalamacchia? Yeah.
And the Rangers actually were trailing 3-0 in that game after 3 innings.
Oh, wow.
30 runs in the last 6 innings of the game. All sorts of weird stuff surrounding that game. So I love that one. I love the second time the Rangers clinched the pennant, which of course was the year after the first one. But probably more unique than that was the night Josh Hamilton hit 4 home runs, which also happened in Baltimore, as it turned out. And getting an opportunity to call I think I called 3 of the 4, including that 4th one, was pretty special. Nolan Ryan's 5,000 strikeout was a big moment too. It was kind of a media creation. 5,000 is just a number. Nobody had done it before. It's not like people can stop at 5,000. But I actually had a chance to call that play, which got a lot of national attention during a time when I never got to call any dramatic moments. Mark Holtz was the lead guy. I did the 4th, 5th, and 6th inning. So I never got to call anything, really important until that game. And it just so happened, that the 5,000 strikeout came in the 5th inning of that game.
Yes.
That was against Ricky Henderson, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a Nolan memory. I was at the 7th no-hitter at Ranger Stadium.
Yeah, you were with 1,000 other people.
Yeah. No, I was really there.
He was.
I was with a couple of buddies. We wanted to see Nolan because you never knew what happened when Nolan would pitch. So we were out there, and I remember it happened, and there was this oldest man I'd ever seen was next to me. Didn't know him at all, and we hugged like we were friends forever when everybody was going crazy in the stadium. So I always remember hugging him, and then after a really awkward hug, I realized, okay, I better get back with my buddies. So.
Scott's dad actually was signed with the Pirates when he was young, and he had the same philosophy. He wouldn't leave a game early. Right. So for the first, we've kind of wavered on that a little as we've gotten older, but when we were, for years, Scott would say, we're never leaving a game early. My dad says, you never know. And he was at a game once.
He was at an Oriole game where they were way behind. I think it was 13-1 or something. And the Orioles came back and won. And he promised, swore he would never leave a game early. And he never did. Well,
my most memorable game is when I caught that ball that Pudge Rodriguez hit and got Cal Ripken to sign it. That grounder that came off.
That I was right behind you.
You were right behind me, but you missed. I caught, that one. So how has your relationship with the players changed over the past 42 years?
Dramatically. When I started doing this, I was 27 years old, which was probably a little bit younger than the average age of our team back then. We had a lot of veteran players then. And those guys really kind of took me under their wing. In those days, the broadcaster was really considered kind of one of the boys. And I remember the first time we were on a road trip, I went into the hotel bar in Detroit, and the players were on one side of the bar, and I didn't want to, invade their privacy. I had met all these guys in spring training, but really, I didn't have any relationships with them. And I went over the other side of the bar, and I ordered a drink, and Richie Zisk came over and walked over to me, and he said, "Hey, Eric, come over, hang out with us. And anytime you want to go out with us after a game, just ask me and I'll tell you where we're going." And he even told me, and in a couple of these cities, there are these great bars. I was single then. There are these great bars where you definitely want to go because there'll be lots of girls there. And you're welcome to come and hang out with us. And so I did that. And for many years, I had friendships with guys on the team. And you go back to that original team, Buddy Bell and Jim Sundberg are exactly the same age as I am. I developed friendships with them that, exist to this day. Charlie Huff came the next year. Charlie's, also about the same age as me. Those guys really were contemporaries and they were my friends. I continued hanging out with the players until the mid-90s. And then with the advent of talk radio, that's really what I blame for the alienation team announcers and players, is players could no longer differentiate between guys like me and guys who work for a talk radio station who are going to call them in the hotel room, at 6 o'clock in the morning and ask them to do a show, or they're going to say a lot of negative things about them.
Yeah.
And so players started wanting to have nothing to do with the quote media. And even though I was working for the team and my job was to put these guys in the best possible light, they were less inclined to want to hang out with me. Also, by then, I was considerably older than a lot of those players. Like the last generation of guys who I hung out with a lot, guys like Bobby Witt and John Burkett and Darren Oliver. I was older than those guys, but not that much.
Yeah.
Those guys, Rusty Greer, those guys I still consider friends of mine. Once you got past that, then I was really like too old to be those guys' friends. And now it's not like I could be their father. I could be a lot of these guys' grandfathers.
Yeah.
I started doing this job in 1979. Now, we don't have anybody who was even born in 1979.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, when we watch now, I say they just look like babies.
They look like they're 12 years old.
Look so young.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting you talk about the talk radio changed it, and then probably social media has even made it even more so with like the negative reaction to kind of protect themselves more.
Right. They're gun shy, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Media it's been great for me because it's made it a lot easier to connect with fans.
Yeah.
Fans used to send us letters.
Yeah.
Every day somebody would come into our booth with a few letters that people had written and sent to the Ranger offices. They'd come from all over the country. Back then we were on WBAP, which had an incredible 50,000 watt signal that you could hear almost all over the country. And we would get letters from all over the place. It was really fun, but it's a lot easier now, to be reachable on Twitter or Instagram. I don't do Facebook anymore. It was just too overwhelming for a while.
Yeah.
And I felt bad I couldn't respond to everybody. And then I got hacked. So I took myself off Twitter.
Enough of that, yeah.
People can reach me on Twitter. They can reach me on Instagram. I'm not that hard to find. People find my email address all the time and send me emails, which is fine.
Yeah.
I respond to everyone. I remember as a kid, I'd be sending letters to players. And, some of them answered, some of them didn't. Back then, they didn't have as many demands for autographs and stuff as they do now.
Yeah.
I would write to announcers too. In fact, even when I was a hockey announcer, wondering if I should keep doing it or if I was wasting my time. And I wrote to some of the announcers, and some of them didn't write back. And I thought, that's awful. How could they not write back? And so now I answer everybody who writes.
And that's great.
Just a fan or an aspiring broadcaster, whatever. It's not that hard to do.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So you mentioned broadcasting. What are the keys to, specifically for radio, what are the keys to making a great broadcast as an announcer?
I think the most important thing in baseball, and it really is different from sport to sport, but in baseball, it's connecting with the fans, on a personal level. Being friendly, having a smile in your voice, sounding like you're happy to be there.
Yeah.
And then you make a connection with them on a human level. And at that point, it almost doesn't matter what you say. It's more how you say it that makes them comfortable to listen to you night after night after night.
Yeah.
And, you start with that. Obviously, you have to have the play-by-play. But I don't think that people are fans of mine or enthusiastic listeners of mine because of the way I call a ground ball to short or even a home run. It's because of, the comfort level they have in listening.
Yeah.
That feeling that I'd like to hang out with this guy. I want to feel like I'm sitting next to him at the ballpark. And to me, that's the most important thing. As we mentioned before, how you fill the time between pitches, to me, is what differentiates a great broadcaster from, just an okay broadcaster. I don't ever want to be boring. it's hard to not be boring during a baseball game. Most of the time, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's important. And also trying to come up with information that the fan doesn't have, that the fan can't readily get. That's where talking to the players, talking to the manager and the coaches is so important. And something that's been limited, since COVID. I don't think my broadcasts are nearly as good now, that I can't go into the clubhouse every day.
Yeah.
And come up with some interesting stuff by talking to players, both on our team and the other team.
Interesting.
That was, one of the highlights of my day every day was digging and getting some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Some little nuggets that no one else would know.
Yeah, to me, that's what makes a great broadcast. And when I listen to other broadcasters, the guys who I really like, they're fun to listen to.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear people say about my broadcast, is it's fun to listen to. It's entertaining. Because after all, that's why people are listening. They want to be entertained. Yeah, they want to know if the Rangers win or lose, but in a season like the one that, we just got done with.
Yeah, a little rough.
It's important on a nightly basis whether they win or lose. And then if you fall behind early 10-0, why should they keep listening?
Yeah, what are you thinking when this is happening? Because it was a rough season. So, how do you keep going?
Yeah, and it's every day pretty much looking for what Mark Holtz used to term diversionary tactics.
Yeah.
Which is basically another way of entertaining the audience other than the balls and strikes and outs of this game. What can we find that's interesting? What can we find that's fun to talk about? What kind of offbeat things can we get into?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a player from Montana. Ooh, let's find all the players. How many players do you think there are from Montana? Well, let's find them all. And now with the internet, I can find them all in 10 seconds.
Yeah. Sure. Whatever you think of, just look it up. Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for constantly. We have Jared Sandler, fortunately, to help us in that regard.
Yeah.
The game gets bad. Jared will text me during the game. He'll say, "What inning do you want me to come up with a trivia question for you?" Or how soon do you want a crazy list? Or do you want to try and guess what day this is, National Blank Day?
Yeah.
And, that's the kind of stuff that we turn to in seasons like this, and even in a good season if you have a really bad game.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned when you were talking about a good broadcast, I really do. When I'm listening to you, I do feel like I'm sitting next to you and we're just hanging out at the game. And there's an art to that I think you have to work on, and you have to love it to do that. So, and I was telling Rebecca, your voice should be like a scented candle. I just love, if there's an afternoon game and I'm driving around, I just love it's just so relaxing having you on in the car. So.
Big man crush area.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to drive around the afternoon and listen to a Rangers game. Yeah.
Well, thanks. And I have announcers like that too. I mean, John Miller's that way for me.
Oh yeah, he's got a great voice too.
On my way home, if the Giants are playing and they usually are, because they're 2 hours behind us, I'll listen to John.
Yeah.
And I've got a few other guys like that who I really like. And the other thing in making great broadcast on radio is the description.
Yeah.
I want to see that picture. And the really good announcers are the ones who give you more detail.
Yeah.
Which is something that I also work really hard at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about your wife, Jeannie. How long have you guys been married? Does she listen to you? Does she listen to you on the radio? And is she a sports fan?
She only listens to me if she needs to know what time I'm going to be home. And she doesn't even really need to do that anymore now that she can look on her phone and see I don't even know that she does that very well. We got married in 1986.
Okay.
So this is our 35th anniversary. Coming up soon. She's not a sports fan.
No.
When I met her, she grew up in Dallas, so she was a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Okay.
As required by law. Didn't really know much or care much about the Rangers. And that really never changed. She basically told me, if the games get important, let me know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And that never really even happened until the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell her, like, around September 1st, I would say, hey, you know, we're in a pennant race. You might actually make the playoffs this year. You might want to start paying attention. And she would do that.
Yeah.
But she never went to a lot of games. Her sister is a big Ranger fan, and she has friends who are big Ranger fans. She would go with them, you know, just to socialize.
Yeah.
But she's a bandwagon fan. You know, the games going
Unashamed.
paying attention. She would go to all the playoff games. You know, she went to the World Series in St. Louis and suffered through that.
I was trying not to bring up Nelson Cruz at all. Let's not even go there, because that hurt me too. It was that, yeah. I don't even know who that is. Yeah. So how has she handled, like, you have because I travel a lot too with my work, and there's that 6 or 8 months where you're just have a crazy travel schedule.
Does she travel with you?
Yeah, she travel, like,
No.
does she ever travel
I
with
don't
you?
know anymore.
Yeah.
Early, she would go. She has friends in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and really on both coasts, Boston and New York, and she would go on those trips. She would usually go to, you know, 1 or 2 other cities that she'd never been to.
Yeah.
So she made it to almost all of the cities in the American League. I don't think she ever got to Detroit or Cleveland, but I think she got to all the other ones.
Yeah.
And now she doesn't travel with me at all. One of the reasons is my job has changed in terms of when I need to get to the ballpark.
Yeah.
When we first got married, I could get to the ballpark at 5 or 5:30 for a 7 o'clock game and get my job done. Well, now I need to be there most days around 3. That's when I record the manager's show. He wants it out of the way so he can move on to more important things.
Yeah.
So that pretty much dictates that I need to be there at 3 o'clock. So it doesn't give us a whole lot of opportunity for doing anything during the day. And if she's going to be by herself, she'd rather be by herself in her own house with her own dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her own friends around. Or lately, you know, in recent years, she's been spending more time in Colorado during the summer.
Yeah.
Getting out of the heat of Texas.
Yeah.
So she's not even around sometimes for the home games.
Right.
But, you know, if we make it to the playoffs again, World Series again, I imagine she'll be back on.
She'll be somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's very independent. She knew what she was getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very strange lifestyle. You know, for 5 months we're together every day, and then for 7 months I spend more time with Matt Hicks than I do with her.
Yeah.
And we both like it that way. And you know, when COVID-19 hit and we stopped traveling with the Rangers, all of a sudden, you know, Jeannie and I were together all the time. It's not the way we roll.
You need that 7-month break.
Yeah, that little break is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not wired for that.
Oh, that's funny. We try to visit most. We have a whole list of Major League parks. We went to Cape Cod Leagues this year. We have this whole list of stadiums we want to visit. I think we're on 15.
Yeah, I think so.
Together now.
We're about halfway.
Yeah, about halfway. What's your favorite stadium and why?
Well, Tiger Stadium is my favorite of all time.
That's because of your first broadcast.
That's a big reason. I also love the design. You know, it was built the same year as Fenway Park, 1912.
Yeah.
But with a double deck design, so that the second deck completely overhung the first deck, and the broadcast booth hung from the second deck, so it was almost directly above the backstop.
Okay, so you're really close.
Really close, by far the closest. We would hear things that were said at home plate.
Oh wow!
And so I love that park. Also, when you walked in, it smelled of hot dogs. And they had really good hot dogs there, and they cooked them on flat grills.
Yeah.
Just steaming, microwaving. They cooked them on flat grills.
Oh, yes.
And the smoke just permeated the whole ballpark. I love it. Of the current parks, Fenway's probably my favorite. Just the whole historical aspect of it, uniqueness of it all.
Yeah.
Plus, I went to games there when I was in college, so it means a lot to me traditionally. Yes. You know, of the new parks, I think I like Minnesota the most. It's really unique.
Oh, yeah.
You guys been to that one?
No, not yet.
Yeah, it looks different. A lot of the new parks look kind of the same.
They do.
Minnesota looks different. They use this blonde Minnesota limestone for all the accents. It's not symmetrical. There's this funky section in the outfield in the upper deck that's shaped like a trapezoid.
Yeah.
There are a couple of really kind of throwback, old-fashioned neon signs, that harken back to the 40s and the 50s. It's it's really fun. So I think that's an underrated gem.
Yeah.
You should definitely plan on going to that one.
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the parks looking the same. Like in the 70s, you had all the round parks, like, St. Louis and all that, and Pittsburgh, they had the round thing. So you feel like maybe some of the new stadiums are kind of copying each other again, maybe? Not being as unique?
To a certain extent, they all with the dark green seats and, and they're all great. But the ones that are unique are the ones that I like. San Francisco is very unique.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem with that park is they really didn't have enough space to build the park. So the concourses are much too small.
Yeah.
Really crowded. We almost didn't make it back to the booth one night after going out to the concession stands in center field because the concourses are so narrow. It took us like a half an hour to get back to our booth.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And we were like salmon swimming upstream. So I love the way the park looks. It's just functionally, it's not as good as the other ones. But I love Seattle because it has that roof that's not attached to the stadium. It's really just an umbrella. So it's an open air stadium, even though it has a roof.
Uh-huh.
I love that one.
That's cool.
San Diego is really nice and a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys been to that one?
Yes.
We've been to San Diego and Seattle. Seattle, I just remember there were too many Yankee fans at that game. It was against the Yankees, and the whole crowd was Yankees. But, yeah.
Well,
Do what?
What's your favorite?
My favorite, I'd have to go with Fenway, too. You're about to tell the
I was
story
about to tell him
Fenway.
he had an emotional experience
I really
when
did.
we crested at the concourse, walked up, and as soon as I have videotaped it because I knew tears as he just walked up and could see
It was just, it's like you're walking into a movie. Like, it's something you never thought you would go see, or you would never experience yourself.
Yeah.
So,
and me, I don't know. I get the emotional attachment of things, and we try to take tours of all the stadiums we go to. So I love all the background. I love all the tell me about where the wives sat and tell me about where all that. And so I love Wrigley.
We had a bleacher bum did our tour there.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And just hearing about the little catwalk where the players walk across there still, and I don't know. I think I just get an emotional attachment, especially once we do the tour of
all the history of it.
Yeah, all the history and stuff like that. I love that.
Which do you like the most out of the new parks that you've seen?
Oh gosh, I
say Camden Yards.
Camden Yards, yeah.
I like Camden Yards.
Yeah.
I really like.
But I'm also a big Cal Ripken fan. That was my first dog's name. That's my email address. So big Cal Ripken fan. So yeah.
I really like San Diego. I mean, partly I guess it's the weather, but I like how it's kind of like Camden Yards where it seems close in the outfield and you've got the buildings in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like the Padres. Is it still Petco still? They changed names so much that it's hard to.
Yeah, that one's still Petco.
Yeah, I really like.
The other two parks that never get mentioned that I love are Kansas City.
Oh yeah, we went to Kansas City. That's pretty.
The fountains.
Yeah.
And it's designed, specifically for baseball. I love that park. We also have a booth there that's very close to home plate and slow down, so I'm probably doing that. But I adore Dodger Stadium.
Oh yes, I love Dodger Stadium. I didn't think I would, but I love Dodger Stadium.
Palm trees, setting the canyon the way it is, and it's kind of it's so 60s. But they did a really good job with the colors and the roof above the bleachers.
Yeah. And then you go to the restroom and Ben Scully's talking to you. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
When we went to Dodger Stadium, Scott said, Dodger fans are known for showing up in the third and leaving in the seventh. And I said, why? And then I realized the traffic situation.
We thought we were early and we still got there in the third inning.
It was terrible. But when we went to Kaufman, it was a night that they were celebrating the Negro League, right? Yeah. And then everybody was dressed to the nines. So they had on the hats, the suspenders, the women had the gloves on. And you could just look in a certain direction where people were dressed that way and just be taken back in time. It was really cool.
It was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that one too.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to throw some names at you and just give me some quick thoughts about these names. These are like Ranger, memorable Rangers. The first one is Mark Holtz.
Oh, the greatest baseball announcer the Rangers have ever had. And ever will have. And just a super warm, kind, friendly guy. And that came over on the air, so that people loved him immediately upon hearing him. He also had probably the best voice of any.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah,
he was great at capturing the dramatic moments. He was just so good in so many ways, and died far too soon.
And he was a mentor for you, right? When
we started working together, I had been doing baseball for 3 years. He had been doing it for like 20 years, in the minor leagues before he got the Ranger job.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's great. Nolan Ryan. I think a few people know who that is. Nolan Ryan.
Yeah. Unbelievably humble.
Yeah.
Really?
That's the thing I would say. You always hope that when you meet your heroes, they're the kind of people you hope that they would be.
Yes.
And he is. For a guy who's, a renowned superstar, to be as down to earth as he is, it just seems impossible, but somehow he is.
Yeah. I remember I worked at the Ranger Stadium, like in the parking lot one year in '94, I think.
So we could get tickets.
So I could get All-Star tickets.
Right.
It was free All-Star tickets. But I remember I was going down one of the stairwells one day, and Nolan was coming up. And I just remember how big he was. Like, he was just a wide, just a big, stocky man. And I just remember, wow, that's a big dude. He wasn't, tall or anything. He was just, solid. So, yeah.
He would sign autographs. Like, when the team bus would get to the hotel after we would fly somewhere, there would always be a legion of fans waiting for Nolan. He would sign everyone. It didn't matter if it was 4 in the morning. And there would be dozens of people at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
He would sign till the last person was gone. And the same thing, when the bus would leave for the ballpark, Nolan would stand outside the bus while players were getting on, sign every autograph, and then get on the bus. And when the team would leave, same sort of thing. As the players were filing onto the bus, many of them ignoring all the kids who wanted autographs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nolan would stand there and sign. And so many times you'd see him get on the bus, and there would be Sharpie marks all over his sleeves.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right over the sleeves of his jacket or his shirt or on his arm. When guys jostled the position to try and get the autograph. He would he would try and accommodate every fan he possibly could.
To make those special memories for people, that's something they'll never forget.
That's so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, the next name is Johnny Oates.
Johnny Oates, I would say, by the book.
Yeah.
He was a very good manager who did everything by the book, but he knew the book backwards and forwards. He knew the percentage move to make. Managers then didn't have all the information that they have now to make their decisions. So he was pretty much right versus left and kind of predictable, but he was very steady. He was an old-fashioned guy, and he knew how to let his veterans run the clubhouse. And that might have been his best strength as a manager. I think the most important job the manager has is having players in the right frame of mind to play.
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge. And Johnny let guys like Will Clark and Mark McLemore take care of things in the clubhouse, so he didn't have to be in there very much. And, I don't know that we'd ever had a manager before that who did it quite that way. And I think that's one of the reasons he was so successful. And with a largely veteran team, it's the way to do it.
Yeah. Okay, the last name is Adrian Beltran. One of my favorites.
The most fun to watch of any player we've ever had. Adrian and Pudge shared that sort of joy of playing. Playing with a smile on your face. Not that many guys do that. And I'm really drawn to those players. So Kirby Puckett is my favorite all-time Ranger.
Is that your dog named after?
My dog's named Kirby Puckett.
Yeah.
With a smile on his face. And it was just infectious. And Beltran is the same way. And to be able to play at a Hall of Fame level and still have that much fun is pretty unique.
Yeah. It took me a season to really get back into Ranger baseball after Adrian left. Just you're talking about just that fun that he had, and it's like I was wondering why am I not into the Rangers as much, and I just missed Adrian. Like just the excitement, and he would do something crazy every game, something amazing, and he was just having fun.
Yeah.
He and Elvis would have so much fun together. Yeah, to play at a high level and have fun. Yeah.
So last week, I'm a hairdresser, and last week I had a guy in my chair that I said, hey, he's a big Ranger fan. I told him we were interviewing you, and he said, hey, he's a big music guy, right? And I said, no, I didn't know that, and I think you knew that. But anyway, and you just had a birthday party at the Kessler, I think. So tell us about why you love music so much, and who are you listening to these days?
Well, there was always music in our house as a kid. My mom would listen to show tunes. Oklahoma, West Side Story, South Pacific, King and I, stuff like that. And then my sister one day brought home an Elvis Presley record, and then I was hooked.
Yeah.
It was a 78 that had Hound Dog on one side and Don't Be Cruel on the other side. And from that point on, I was going to the record store all the time and listening to records and buying records. And, as the years have gone on, I've always been open to all kinds of different music. And, I'm pretty much a fan of rock, Americana, what they used to call folk, some country, a lot of soul, rhythm and blues. And, I'm hearing new artists all the time. And I've kind of got my antenna out, and I've got people who send me new artists all the time. And I'm constantly looking for new music. I put on a concert series once a month at Cafe Momentum in downtown Dallas, which is a nonprofit restaurant that hires juvenile offenders when they come out of detention. And once a month we have a dinner concert, and I get to pick the bands. I get to pick the artists.
Is that year round?
It's year round, yeah.
Yeah.
We closed down for the pandemic, but we started up again this May. We've had, I think, 40 shows.
Okay, yeah, we definitely want to check that out.
Something like that.
And
the next one is November the 21st.
Okay.
And we won't do one in December, then we'll start up again in January.
Oh, that's cool.
It's an amazing cause. The kids who are in this program have a recidivism rate of about 10%, whereas normally the kids who come out of juvenile detention, it's over 50%.
Yeah.
So it's been an incredible success story, and to be able to take part in what they do once a month, and provide a musical experience both for the patrons and the kids, it's really rewarding.
That's really cool.
That's great. I know. I was looking at you. I was like scrolling through your Instagram, and it seems like wherever you go, you find somewhere to find a live band. Is what?
I try to.
Yeah.
It used to be a lot easier when everybody played day games on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Always find some music on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But I'm always looking to try and get lucky on an off day, and as soon as the season ends, I usually cash in. I think the first week after the season, I think I went to 3 different shows, including my current favorite band. You asked who I'm listening to these days. Lake Street Dive.
Oh,
Lake Street Dive. Okay.
Lake Street Dive. They're kind of a jazz rock band. They're very unique. The lead female singer has an unbelievable voice and persona. And I've been a fan of theirs since 2010 when I saw them opening a show for another band at a club in New York. And now they've actually gotten to the point where they play at Red Rocks every year, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I saw them at the factory last week. It used to be called the Bomb Factory, now it's just called the Factory in Deep Ellum. Like between 3,000 and 4,000 people.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
I've seen them many times, and I'll go see them every chance I get. They're my number one favorite.
I'm gonna search them out on iTunes as soon as we get that. So, because I love live music, I love finding new music. So, yeah, that's right down my alley. So, okay, now we have a book we're going to talk about. Speaking of art, we have Limerick. It's a book that you put out with different limericks in it. So, how did this idea come about?
You got some unusual talents.
You really do. Your music, your writing, you've got lots of things going on here.
You do.
So where did the idea come from? And we asked if you would share your favorite limerick. So
the idea came from what we were talking about earlier, diversionary tactics. A few years ago, the Rangers were hopelessly out of contention by the end of April. They were like 10 games behind the Astros. By the end of I think it was 2017. And one day, we were playing the Red Sox, and how is it that Matt put it? Oh, one of their players had just been called up from their minor league team, which, of course, was Pawtucket.
Pawtucket, yeah.
Matt said they just called him up from Pawtucket. And I said, hey, Matt, that kind of sounds like the first line of a limerick. And he said, yeah, I've heard that limerick. I don't think we can say it on the air.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's write one that we can say on the air.
Uh-huh.
And so in between innings, and like while Matt was doing play-by-play, I'm scribbling things. And when I was in junior high school and they taught us about limericks, I was immediately very good at it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But we came up with this limerick. A young hitting star from Pawtucket, each time up, would step into the bucket. If he got this corrected, he'd soon be elected to Cooperstown, like Kirby Puckett. And there was a lot of reaction to it on social media. And I said, hey, Matt, this is it. This is our diversionary tactic.
Yeah.
Let's write a limerick every game.
Oh, wow.
And read it on the air in the 8th inning. So people have to stick around. Or if they tune out, they can tune back in. And by the 8th inning, we can write it about that game. Or write it about something else that's going on in the world or in our lives or something.
But you didn't work on it until then. You didn't work on it until the game started.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Although if something else was going on, maybe we would. Like when the World Cup was going on, I remember, writing some limericks about the World Cup. And when the NBA Finals were going on, we wrote a limerick about the NBA Finals. And sometime that year, I think it was in June, a friend of mine said, at the end of the year, you're going to have 120 limericks.
Yeah.
You should get an artist and put out a book.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, when I was talking about the idea, said, well, I know this artist. His name, as it turned out, is Art James. And he's done a lot of album covers and a lot of sports art. And he's a big Ranger fan. And why don't you talk to him? So I had lunch with him and I gave him some of the limericks. And he sent me later that day some sketches. And I said, you're the guy, let's do this.
Yeah.
I was looking for a project to do with the Rangers Charity Foundation, since they do such amazing work building rec centers and ball fields all over the Southwest, in underserved neighborhoods. And so we came up with the idea to do this book and raise money for the Rangers Foundation with the sales of the book. And that's really how the whole thing came to be.
Wow.
That's great. And we let our fans know we had 10 books available. You were nice enough to sign them for us, and those were gobbled up pretty quick. So we've already gotten rid of our 10 books. So we appreciate you doing that.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And my favorite limerick in the book is about the switch pitcher, the ambidextrous pitcher. Pat Vendetti. I'm fascinated with this guy. He pitches left-handed to left-handed batters, left-handed to right-handed batters. He's the only pitcher in Major League history to do that.
Yeah.
And he's a fringe major leaguer. Every year he spends part of the year in the majors, part of the year in the minors, because he doesn't throw that hard. So anyway, he was playing for the Dodgers that season that we were writing the limericks, and he came in to pitch against us, and I said, I got to write a limerick about Pat Vendetti. So I quickly came up with the beginning of it, and I kind of got stuck in the middle of it. And a friend of mine actually texted me during the game. A friend of mine, Beth Kruger, texted me during the game and said, are you writing a limerick about Pat Vendetti? And I said, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I'm writing one too. And she sent me the limerick that she wrote.
Yeah.
Between the first two lines that I had come up with and the punchline that she came up with, together we wrote this limerick while he was actually pitching that night.
Yeah.
And then after the game, I actually went down there and talked to him and showed him the limerick. And he was really enthusiastic about it. And I got his address so that I could send him a book when the book came out. And we have this incredible drawing of him throwing with both arms simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But the limerick goes, whenever they need Pat Vendetti, his left arm and right arm are ready. He brings the team extras because he is ambidextrous. With which hand does he eat spaghetti? And that was Beth's line.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Fantastic.
But
Scott,
it turns out he eats spaghetti with his right hand.
yeah.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Good
So
to
He's
know.
not even ambidextrous. His father taught him to throw left-handed. When he started playing baseball, his father taught him to throw with both hands, starting at like age 3. He doesn't do anything else left-handed except pitch to left-handed batters.
That's so interesting.
Didn't Brooks Robinson do that too, where he used the opposite hand so he could get used to it? I think that's what my dad told me one time.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I can see why you totally have a man crush here.
Yeah.
Scott, of course, love for baseball, loves local music, and he has also published a book, quite an author. Both of you guys have the same wavelength brain.
Yeah.
So,
And I could talk baseball with you all night long. I really could.
but
Yeah.
we probably should we should probably let Eric go.
He needs to get
He's
some
in
rest.
Colorado enjoying himself.
Yeah.
Eric, what a pleasure to have you on. We thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge and wisdom. It's been so much fun. We appreciate you.
Great to meet you guys. It was a lot
Great
of
to
fun.
meet you.
Babe, that was amazing.
It was.
Such a great interview. And I think you really stumped him with that Brooks Robinson trivia at the end.
Well, I say my dad was telling me the truth about that, but I'm pretty sure Eric knows a lot more about baseball than I do.
I bet he does.
Yeah.
And,
Yes, he does.
and listen, this book is going to go so fast. It is on Amazon right now. You should get it for stocking stuffers. What a great plan. Get it for stocking stuffers right now. It is spelled like his name.
Lim Eric.
Eric,
Yep.
which is a form of poetry. It is so good. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to Hardy Party 5.5 Podcast. You should do that because season 4 is going to be all that. Hardy Party at 5.5. Over and out.
We'll see you next time.